The inner light is shined on in a deep introspective way. And at the same time, you get an opportunity to make change. And I like to think of the plant medicines as a great opportunity creator. That if you're locked into certain patterns or you have blockages, this is where there's, dramatic unlock, and also why there's such great importance in the person that you do this with, the people that help guide this, so that they can help safely guide you to having that agency so that you can go through the pattern disrupts and then also make the changes that you recognize through the experience itself.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurs Recovery Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Harless. Entrepreneurs Recovery is a podcast where people come to listen, to heal, to regulate, and to remember. I'm really excited right now because not only is this episode today that you're about to listen to the second time I've had this guest on, who is Hamilton Souther, I'm also excited about just what's happening with Entrepreneurs Recovery. And if you were listening to the last show that we had last week, that was a really vulnerable, short episode with me talking about my 20-year recovery journey. And in today's episode with Hamilton, this is the second time we've brought him on because the first time we get into a lot of things that I think are important about psychedelic medicines and a lot of things that are important about this conversation about ayahuasca and also how to be properly trained. What I'm really excited about is I just got to blast him with lots of questions to go really deep to get to know more about what is the experience like with a plant medicine like ayahuasca. And I also got to share a little bit about my journey and my challenges navigating medicines like this and what his perspective was. So this is just a great episode. Hamilton he's had Blue Morpho for 23 years. He's done over 15,000 journeys. And I just say that to say that this is just a really grounded episode with someone who has been doing this a really long time, someone that in the space of psychedelics, I'm excited to be talking to and also to be collaborating with as a psychedelic concierge. So I really hope you all enjoy the show. Hey, Hamilton, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Jesse, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Yeah, I'm really glad you're back on the show. We have a lot of things that I want to get into. There's been a lot of life experiences, even though you were on only a few months ago. To bring you back on, I think is just part of the journey that I'm walking. And you have been walking for many decades. And I want to dive right back into this story and also just let the listeners know that today's going to be really special because we're going to be talking about some of the things that are coming up in the future for me and visiting you, and also some of the training that you have happening. So I'm really excited for this conversation today. So welcome back.
Yeah, thanks. How have things been going? How's the pursuit of plant medicines?
Well, it's been an interesting one, to say the least. And, I still try to navigate the course of medicines with as much introspection and just a lot of, let's say, care, because there's my nervous system and my life's path and the my background, coming from 15 years of abstinence sobriety and just having this look of what is here and how do you treat it with traditional therapy and CBT and all these different ways. And then finding psychedelics 15 years into my journey and listening to you on several podcasts for 10 hours, 20 hours and going, all right, I want to have Hamilton on the show. I want to have this really deep conversation. And I think we did that on our first conversation, but I wanted to bring you back and dive in a little deeper as I'm exploring and noticing what's happening out there. And, maybe we can just start with a little bit who you are, but maybe let's just start right with debunking anything people may not expect or know or about psychedelics and about these medicines.
Yeah, first of all, I'm Hamilton Souther, and I've lived in the Peruvian Amazon for 23 years. I grew up in Silicon Valley in a pretty, preparatory-oriented educational, youth system, and I found my way to plant medicines in my early 20s when I was looking for direction in my life, and I'd had a spiritual awakening and was coming out of depression and feeling pretty lost. So kind of my own kind of dark night of the soul. And I've had a beautiful and honored opportunity to get to live with and participate in plant medicines here in the Amazon and share ayahuasca and San Pedro and plant medicine dieta with now people from all over the world. I've created the Center Blue Morpho, and we've hosted groups and retreats for since 2002. So 23 years. So it's been an incredible journey, and there's a lot to debunk. The truth is there's a lot.
Yeah.
Like anything that in this world, there's real factual information, and then there's a lot of stuff that's just made up, and especially about something as fantastical as visionary plant medicines and psychedelics. You could imagine all the things that people could say about it. But I think the first thing that's interesting down here to talk about is the nature of a medicine culture, not a drug culture. And here in the forest, ayahuasca is not considered a drug. It's considered a visionary plant medicine that is esteemed both as something very sacred and also with a spiritual component, that it is seen as a very powerful spirit. So, it's not used in any kind of recreational setting. And it's actually used to help people that are suffering from different kinds of addiction. So it's used to treat alcohol addiction and other kinds of substance addictions, and it's a incredibly powerful experience. And so I know in Western culture it's described as a drug, and here it's just not thought of in that way. It's thought of as a very powerful medicine. It's wielded by maestro medico vegetalistas. They're from the West, sometimes referred to as master shaman, but they themselves go by the term master, and maestro means like a master or mastery level of. And then medico means doctor of, and vegetalista means of the plants. And what they're referring to is this vast diversity of plant and plant medicines that are here in the forest. And behind me is the Amazon, and plant medicines are growing right there. And so this idea of people just taking them untrained is also not part of the culture. And so first, let's debunk the idea of the drug culture around this. And then the idea, and you'll hear it often in the space, that people get called to serve this medicine directly by the medicine without any kind of training. So you're going to hear lots of people who are going to say, I was told by ayahuasca, I went to an ayahuasca retreat, and I was told by ayahuasca to serve the medicine. And that would be not allowed here in the Amazon. That would just be considered malpractice or charlatanism. Here, people train for 5 to 10 years to be able to hold ceremony. And it's based on the speed at which the student or the apprentice moves through the schooling and the teaching necessary to be able to wield it. So some learn a little slower, and those are the people that are in like the 10 to 15 year. And some people learn quicker, and they're the people in, the 5, 6, 7, 8 year path. And so there's this long education and being able to wield that. And when you hear people say that they don't need training, that medicine told them to, that just flies in the face of and goes directly against the ancestral teachings that have been, part of the medicine lineages here, which is the home of the medicine, where the medicine was born. And so I think that's something also to debunk. There's a real need for education, and it's part of the culture. I was really lucky in my early 20s to be taken through that, and my training lasted 14 years. So I was in direct apprenticeship, and then I was graduated as a maestro very quickly through the process, and I continued training for 14 years. I learned the basics quickly, and I went through a long phase of continued practice with the medicines in that, learning. And so I want people to know that, people who are really trained in this, who have a lot of experience, they've amassed that experience over time, and there's a reason and merit for it.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. I recently had experience yesterday, actually, where I celebrated 20 years of sobriety from alcohol. And I share that to say, I don't have a hatred towards alcohol, but what I do have a feeling towards is how readily available it is and how we can just grab it at Walmart or any of these places that we go to. But when we want to access, let's say, medicines that are going to be really helpful over in the long term, and if they're done with care and facilitated properly, we would have, I think, a rapidly different experience in our society is what I'm sort of coming to. And with that said, I'm curious, what do you think about when it comes to healing and it comes to people who maybe just not necessarily struggling with addiction, but just life? What do you think that ayahuasca can do and help, especially in a container like you've created out where you are?
I wanted to continue the practices after my own experiences because of the tremendous healing I received, and wanted there to be a safe place that operated with integrity and ethics for others to get to experience this because it was so profound. I relate to the cultures that have shared really poisons and things that are not good for us everywhere. I grew up in the middle of it, and I was just back in Silicon Valley, and alcohol's everywhere. And we know that it's not that good for us. And what is so impressive about ayahuasca is that after ayahuasca ceremonies, not only do people get cured of addiction or helped with addiction, but their desire for it completely goes away. And so that's, I think, like the big unlock is that, in my youth, I drank alcohol, and the desire to drink alcohol left me with ayahuasca. And I've heard that now with hundreds of people who've been through our center that have interested in changing their relationship with alcohol, that not only do you stop, but the desire for it's gone. And even some people who really, enjoyed their alcoholic beverage, not just coming from a place of addiction, but they found that they wanted to give it up. They didn't want to consume it anymore after these, ceremonies. And then on top of that, not only this change in relationship to substance, you get a change in relationship within yourself. Like the very first healings I received were for the healings of depression, and an identification with just kind of feeling down and negativity and darkness. And that was ripped out of me. In ceremony, I just started purging until that just came out and there wasn't any of it left. And it's hard to describe how you could, release a psychological state. But that's one of the great mysteries of this kind of plant medicine. And with it left depression and negativity and negative identification and kind of all the things that go with those distressed psychological states. And we found over the years that ayahuasca became well known for helping people transcend depression and those kinds of difficulties. And then it moves on from that. It goes into, lots of kinds of illness that are psychosomatic, where people have pain and or other kinds of physical malaise, gastrointestinal problems. Lots of people who've come with Crohn's disease or other kinds of, real irritation in their intestines and bowels have found almost immediate healing through the experience. That's also common. And so the medicine is incredible at healing a variety of states that we experience. And I think the final one is a kind of spiritual illness that a lot of people suffer from, which is that their spirit has just been in some way compressed or beat down or suppressed in their life. The kind of life force vivaciousness that they are has become muted over time and just, in many cases stepped on, whether it's by trauma or, the nature of their life itself. And most people feel like their spirit gets turned on, their life force, they get reinvigorated. And we consider that a kind of spiritual healing.
Well, these are the topics I like to dive into, obviously. And I feel like there's a responsibility on my part because of entrepreneurs in recovery. And people always ask me, in recovery, I don't go to AA. That's not what I'm talking about, right? I'm just talking about the recovery that comes with living in this world. I grew up in the United States. So growing up in the United States and the East Coast and New England, and just how fast things move and how quickly things are resolved. And there's a lot of, I would say, I feel there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of addiction, of course. There's suicide, disconnection happening everywhere, but especially where I'm from. And, so when I think about people coming to utilize medicines like ayahuasca, what can people access in themselves when they're utilizing this medicine? Because they're people come into the medicine for all different reasons, but from where I'm from and where I'm coming here now to speak with you, I'm just really curious of what people can get to know about themselves and access with this medicine.
The ceremonial context is special because when you go into ayahuasca, you start to access within yourself what you find in your conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. And you also really see in deep introspection the relationship you have with everything else. So there's an internal form of discovery, and then there's a relational form of discovery where you really see the nature of your own participation and the relationship that you have with others. And there's typically great transformation and healing in those experiences when we, face shadow and recognize what is deep within our ego. And we will find things that were buried in our subconscious that could have been great motivators for us, even unhealthy ones. And they get ultimately, revealed and released. And then you see the nature of how you interact with others, both from a kind of voluntary mindset, and then also the nature of the kind of the more involuntary, like just the patterns that you've carried with you through your life, and how that affects the nature of your relationships. And all of that becomes an opportunity to grow and heal. And so the inner light is shined on in a deep introspective way. And at the same time, you get an opportunity to make change. And I like to think of the plant medicines as a great opportunity creator, that if you're locked into certain patterns or you have blockages or things are buried in your subconscious, even if you have a desire to access it and do something about it, you think it's a good idea to have that kind of awareness and personal transformation. You don't always feel like you have the agency or the capacity or know-how to be able to affect that change. And this is where there's, dramatic unlock, and also why there's such great importance in the person that you do this with, the people that help guide this, so that they can help safely guide you to having that agency, so that you can, go through the pattern disrupts and then also make the changes that you recognize through the experience itself.
Yeah, we're going to get into that too. Thank you for that answer. We're going to get into, how facilitators can make all the difference. But before we go to that, I just want to, I'm thinking about our last interview and the things I didn't ask, or even if I did, I want to hear them again. One is, you mentioned before about the true medicine is within you. So if the true medicine is within you, then how does this medicine, in particular ayahuasca, bring that true medicine out of you so you can get to know that?
The beauty of ayahuasca is that it's a great amplifier of you, and it has an instigative ability to turn you back on. So some people call it their spirit, some people call it their energy, some people call it their core or their chakras. And, it all comes down to this union and nexus within us in our center that is our heart. And so as you drink the ayahuasca medicine and you go in to awaken the deep medicine that's within, it ultimately comes forth through the heart. And as that expands, a lot of things happen. The first one is that a lot of the baggage we were holding on to, we realize isn't so important to hold on to anymore. Right? The heart kind of overwhelms that and overpowers it. The second is we realize that we're the source of our love, not that love is a scarce and externalized resource that we have to try to get from somewhere else. Instead, as the heart opens up, you feel this love flowing through you that is infinite and eternal. And there's no way to quantify how much there is. It's just present within you all the time. And so that really turns on the medicine within. And as your energy starts to flow better through your body, it's not just all mental anymore. So you're more grounded and you're more present. And then that's where you feel like your life force energy turned back on. You feel like your spirit turns on. And you can see it in people. It's really quite miraculous. People will come, on the first day of a retreat, they've been traveling and they're tired and stuff, and by day 3, 4 of the medicine, they're starting to shine. And by day 5, they're glowing. People glow, their eyes glow light. You can just see it in their semblance and their skin tone. And it's a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah. And I mean, that's really why at this stage, I picked up some of my possessions, came to Costa Rica. I really wanted to get my nervous system relaxing a little bit. And I wanted also to surround myself as a psychedelic liaison concierge, people that I can know, like and trust in this space of medicine. And because when I sat with medicine, with my makeup and my nervous system, I mean, you look at me. I mean, maybe I look like I'm, tough or not or sensitive. That would be more what I am, is more sensitive. So when the medicine came on, it was just, oh boy, it went right to childhood. It went right to, it was all different phases of it. But I share all that to say this experience was really pivotal for me to step into, and then integrating it. I'm still integrating it. I'm still integrating it years later, and of course I still meet many medicines, but I'm just so curious about this process of integration. And this is where we talk about facilitator training and facilitators, because this is really where this co-regulated support with a guided, a trained facilitator has been so game changing for me. I mean, I literally physically look different when I look at myself a few years ago and I look at myself now. It's a combination of, yes, utilizing medicine, but also with the right proper care and guidance through co-regulation. So maybe if you can share a little bit about that and how important there is to have a trained facilitator.
Yeah. Another beauty of these medicines is the opportunity to re-regulate your nervous system. And, we come to this in what I call a mild simmer of fight or flight. We never really just get fight or flight to be turned off. And so we're in this, self-created state of stress, and then in scenarios that are uncomfortable, it gets turned on even more, often socially triggered. We get into the medicine, and I help share and teach that we get in to calm down, not get more scared. We're actually going into a place of deep introspection and meditation. We will be confronted with certain things in our psyche that we need to process, but that's what's going to help us learn to turn off our fear. And the nature of being guided or supported or having a facilitator with you is paramount to the experience. Just like any kind of experience where you're going into the unknown, you want to have a guide, and you want that guide to have tremendous skills in understanding how to help you and work with you. And, the way we learn to do that is by learning a broad set of capacities, so that when we work with a variety of individuals, we have the ability to, understand them, work with them, and know how to be able to guide them. And so the facilitator is paramount to the experience, both in the ceremonies and then after the ceremonies. And so I think of the ceremonies again as an opportunity. Things change in them, but after the ceremonies, you get, 6 months to a year window to be able to completely evolve your life. And so that starts in your choice, and it starts in the new choices you make that are becoming not only new habits and routines, but they're also unveiling new opportunity of experience. And so that's where having somebody who knows how to facilitate and guide becomes really important. During the ayahuasca ceremony itself, you're in a visionary state anywhere from about 4 to 12 hours, typically around 4, but there are, edge cases where it is longer lasting for some people. And interestingly, there's a time dilation in the experience, or a time distortion. So it could feel very short or much longer. In fact, some people say it could feel like decades or even hundreds of years of time. So now you're going to go into this space. You're going to start to navigate that space. You want to have somebody help you, know how to navigate within the nature of visions. And that's the role of a master facilitator or a médico vegetalista, is to know how to be able to guide that, shift the energy, both protect from any kind of negative energy that's in the space, and also how to be able to support you so you get the most out of it. And they do it through percussion and chanting and an art form down here called Ícaro. Ícaro is a form of language that is used to guide the energy within the ceremony. So it's percussive and melodic, but it is also based in intention and words. And so when I first met Ícaro, I didn't understand at all what the people were saying or doing with it, but I could tell it changed the space. It changed the visionary space that you go into in ayahuasca. And that was phenomenal. You could be in a visionary space that's dark or all of a sudden scary, and you could hear the chants of the médico vegetalista, and all of a sudden that whole space changes context and form and color and can become beautiful. And that's how they redirect the nature of your experience. And so having their presence is paramount to it. And then just like anything that you're new to, knowing how to engage and interact after is also really important. So we do that in our community with bi-monthly calls that I host for the community in and around mentorship, Q&A, and integration skills. And we have a vibrant community that integrates together just by talking and being friends and supporting each other through the nature of the process. We have a community that meets every single week for ongoing teachings and greater techniques. And so, we'll help somebody and support somebody for months and months after their ayahuasca ceremonies so that they can continue to get the most out of them.
Yeah, what I'm seeing right now is people reaching out to me from the States that often come from the world of addiction recovery, and they're well into their recovery journey, and it's men and women, and they're reaching out and they're asking how to navigate the landscape that's happening. You're seeing cannabis maybe federally, Schedule a 3 substance soon. You see, ketamine is something that is legal in the United States that people are utilizing. And when they go to look to utilize these what's available to them in the States, it's they can become overwhelmed. And then a lot of times when they reach out to the person that is doing that, the person actually doesn't have extensive training experience in medicines, even sometimes even ketamine itself. And so so this just brings me to this question of how, like, why right now more than ever is proper training important, especially when you're thinking about doing something like ayahuasca, which can last, like you said, it could be 4 hours plus easy.
I think training is so important because we're an education-based society and we learn through education. And we all know that when we're educated in something, we're much better at it than if we just go into it without any kind of awareness and then, without any kind of practice. And so it's strange to me that there's a new Western psychedelic culture with facilitators who don't have ample experience in the medicine themselves. I've talked with, people in the ketamine space that have never used it themselves. They only prescribe it and give it to others, and they don't really know what the experience is. Same thing I've seen in the psychedelic space in and around plant medicines. To me, this is very, very strange. Down here as an apprentice, you participate in many visionary ceremonies before you're ever allowed to facilitate for somebody else. It could be hundreds, and in some cases over 1,000 ceremonies where you ingest plant medicine and learn. I don't think that's necessary to be able to be a proper facilitator. I think we can learn with the right kind of education and the right structure to it with less ceremonies, but it still takes ample practice. I expect people through our course to have at least 2 ceremonies a month during the time that they're training, so that they really learn how to sit in the medicine and be in it. You get a situation now where people are trying to, have these new medicines be available to them. They don't really know how to use them. So there's stuff to learn about dose and dosing. Like you said, you're sensitive to the medicine, so you need to know how to dose appropriately for that. You need to know how to create space and have a safe space for the experience itself, how to internally navigate it, regulate your nervous system and your psyche, reorient the experience if it starts to go into a place that's dominated by fear or a psychological darkness. You need to know how to connect with the plants themselves. It's not just the way you'd take an aspirin and expect it to work. There's a relationship that forms, and there's a give and take in the nature of the experience that's taught here in the Amazon that people need to know about and to learn how to engage with. So I've found that when people go through our courses and then come to work with the plant medicines, they're exponentially more prepared for the experience that they're going to have, including the ability to integrate it. Right now, what's really important for me too is that I want you to have the power of your own mental health in your own hands, right? You go to doctors to have the experience, or you go sit in a circle, maybe with someone who has skills or not, but you're dependent upon them to provide the safety and the guidance and the direction. So I know, as people take our course, they start to really understand how to guide themselves. And it's an extra layer of safety for them. So if you go to, any kind of circle, whether it's psilocybin or San Pedro based, whether it's a ketamine clinic or MDMA, you would be able to know how to not only keep yourself safe, but others as well if, something happened. And so you have this much greater safety net, and you have a much deeper awareness about how to safely work with the medicines and get the most out of them. I think that's what we really focus on. How do you get the most out of these experiences?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak and I've spoke about it. I'm coming up on almost 100 episodes, and many, I would say half the episodes, we talk about psychedelic assisted therapy or psychedelic medicines. And I've shared before about my experience in the summer of 2023, where I had a very big medicine experience where I became destabilized. And what I mean by that is during and at the end of the experience, I started looping in the medicine, and I thought I'd already come out of the medicine, but I looped back in, and I did this what felt like 19 times, and it was really scary. And when I finally did come back, I couldn't actually properly share about it because I was in a group, and I didn't want to scare everyone. So I sort of just moved into my place to hold space after, instead of, really processing it. But here's what happened is I didn't even have an opportunity to process it after. And despite the community and the people I had in my life, I had reactivations. So even though I knew I had access to certain people, I didn't feel safe internally to share about what was happening. It was almost like, it was hard to describe, almost like an embarrassment of like, wow, I can't believe this has happened to me with the medicines I've done. And so it took 6 months. It took 6 months before I was able to go back to the medicine again in a proper, really proper setting, guided by a beautiful facilitator with care, where when I met the medicine again, I ended up having a corrective experience, and it released in my nervous system. And this was like something that went into my nervous system, and it released and it was gone. And so what is your experience with that and that type of experience?
Yep. First of all, looping's pretty common. And so, for those out there, don't feel bad if you have that happen to you, and be open about it and share about it with others. It can be scary. It's happened to me a variety of times. when it starts to happen, you go into a pattern of recycling awarenesses. And I think of it in the brain as a certain part of the brain is associating information, and it does it the same way over and over again. So to us, it seems like such a big perception that's being overwhelmed. And in our brain, it's actually something really uh, minute that's taking place. And it can be very overwhelming. It can be very powerful. We recommend for people to learn how to be able to interject into that awareness something that triggers a shift out of the loop itself, and then the ability to ground afterwards. So it can be psychologically destabilizing. And so once we get out of the loop, then we go back down into the grounded state and back down into the heart. And that's what really helps us be able to move from, you know, this kind of cyclical or circular kind of experience. I remember for me, the last time it happened, it was a number of years ago, but it felt, shocking, and it was really scary. And it was at the beginning of a ceremony. And so I knew there was still going to be in for the next 4 to 6 hours. There was no coming out of it just because of that. And so we help teach you how to reorient the experience, going from something that's scary back down to being able to, one, get out of it, break the pattern, two, fully ground, and then turn the fear off about it. And then three, open up our heart again and open up to everything that's beautiful about the experience and be able to process and move on from it. And those kinds of techniques are exactly why you need to, learn from somebody that's had a lot of experience. We've, gone through pretty much everything that can happen, both in our own personal experience and with others. And then it gives you a breadth of knowledge to be able to help support somebody else.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, it's having, someone like you to consult with, and someone who knows that this has happened to you personally, not just in theory or if you heard about it, you've actually experienced it, goes a long way. It's one thing to talk about an experience, but to have an experience and then be able to sit with someone and say, hey, I've been there. Let me go ahead and share my experience, and then be able to, that's sort of like the way trauma can heal. Trauma can heal. And that's what happened in that experience. It was trauma that was stored in my mind and in my body. And that was eventually properly, and it's no longer to return. I mean, literally that was it. It was gone. So
Yeah.
a question I have for you is, when it comes to facilitators, like, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see with untrained or untrained facilitators in the space?
I think the biggest mistake is coming from good intentions, but not knowing how to manage the psyche and the energies that are in the space. So most people are in essence being like wishful thinking. They're hoping the best for the space, but they don't really know how to manage it and or address the energies that are flowing through it. And um, the other is that the medicine does all the work. People just say the medicine does it all. But there's three components to the medicine that really matter. It's the quality of what you actually ingest, the quality of the physical medicine, and then the second component is the real ability of the facilitators to manage the direction and the flow of that. And the third component is the relationship in consciousness or in spirit or in energy that gets formed during that experience. And it's something very subtle. Um, I see a lot of facilitators themselves scared. They're scared of what could happen. They're scared of negative things happening, and so that colors the space. And then they over interject themselves into somebody's experience without understanding the experience. So if I saw somebody looping like that, I wouldn't be overly concerned about it. I would keep helping them interject this shift. I wouldn't try to talk to them. I wouldn't try to get them to become verbally coherent in that moment. I wouldn't like overly smother them, in physical contact. You energetically guide that. You get them to make that shift in their own mind, and they pop out of that thing. So I see that. Um, And you have to have a deep recognition of the various types of visionary states that you go into, so that you're not, negatively moved by that. And then I see people use music that they don't really understand. They don't really understand the energy of the music. They just like the music, but because they don't know all of the different psychological states that somebody goes through in the medicines, they might just put on a playlist and hope that's going to, do the trick. But really, you got to be really observant and understand the kind of space somebody's in, and either DJ and pick the right songs and know how to do that, or you need to know how to make the nature of the chants and the percussion yourself. And so I think all of those things are part of putting together a really safe experience for others. And I think the final one is people not knowing how to deal with emergencies. So a lot of people just get lucky for the first, 50, 100, 200, 300 ceremonies or sessions they facilitate for. And they've never really faced a real emergency and know how they're going to operate within the nature of that space, whether it's an emergency because of the ceremony itself, or an emergency out or around the ceremony that they have to deal with. I remember we had just built a new ceremonial house, and we were in our first week of ceremonies in it, and there was a significant earthquake during our ceremony. So, what's the protocol for 20, 25 people deep in a peaking part of an ayahuasca ceremony to now address just seismic movement? What do you do in that kind of a situation? The house was safe, and, we uh, managed it with calmness and care. And you need to have that kind of an ability so that you actually know what to do if there is an emergency.
Yeah, it's funny that you say earthquake because we just had an earthquake here. I've never in my life, in 42 years of experience, an earthquake. We had a 6.1
Mm.
magnitude earthquake happen at night when I was right here in this seat on a Zoom call with a friend, and it opened up the drawers here. It opened up my cabinets. It was really, and it was really trippy to say the least. And yeah, so again, going back to an emergency plan and being ready for anything that can happen, I think is just so essential. I mean, you have so many people come into the medicine that are on medications or coming off medications to be able to come and utilize these medicines. I mean, this is really common. And so you want to be able to know about contraindications with medicines, and you want to be able to understand an emergency plan, as you know. And so I guess what's on my mind though is when it comes to holding ceremonies, like what risk do people underestimate when it comes to not having a lineage? And I would say, I think you know what I mean by the question, what type of risks with ayahuasca, because ketamine is different. These other psilocybin is different. But when it comes to ayahuasca, what risks do they face with not having a lineage?
Well, I think the risks with ayahuasca can be significant if you don't have training. The You can just start in the basics, the start in the physical and move to the non-physical. In the physical, you have to know how to screen correctly. And every year there are new classes of drugs that come out that are contraindicated to ayahuasca. Then you need to know how to screen for proper medical conditions, and if there are any, and how to be able to discern in states that aren't black and white. There are many shades of gray where someone may or may not be a candidate, and you have to be able to make that decision. At Blue Morpho, we standardized the the policy of getting a doctor's approval for people who are in any kind of borderline, any kind of shade of gray. And I can say, proudly of the medical system, that we never had a doctor turn anybody down in terms of writing them a permission for coming to participate in ayahuasca, even if the doctor didn't believe in it. They were, if the person really was a candidate and the person wanted to do it for their own health and well-being, the doctor signed the permission note. So, you know, you need to know that. And um, then you have to know all the different kinds of foods that are contraindicated. There's a whole grouping of foods that you're not supposed to eat beforehand that can, cause hypertension. So you have proper diet and proper preparation. Then there's in the experience itself. And the risks can be from issues around dose and high and low blood pressure, uh, a reaction to what they call serotonin syndrome. If you aren't properly prepared for it, you can have a physiological response. Then as you get into the experience, there's two common, really more difficult things to navigate. One is when somebody fully dissociates and they can potentially become a harm to themselves without even knowing it, whether they're just flopping their arms around or moving their head in ways where you could create contusions, or bruise yourself. And so we have protocols around that, about how we create space around somebody, how we get enough mats around them, and if necessary, how you can humanely restrain somebody so that they don't cause themselves any kind of harm. Usually when somebody's in that state, which is really unique, is that they themselves won't even realize it's happening. They'll be in a full vision. They'll be in a complete visionary state where they are, connecting with something supernatural. Once you get deeper into that, it's the actual interactions that take place. Like you said, you were in a spin in a kind of medicine ceremony. The actual interactions that take place are impactful. It's more than a lucid dream. In ayahuasca, you're in an alternate reality. You're in an alternate state of lucidity. And so the kinds of interactions you have can make a great impact on you, whether they're, scary or they're dark in context, or you feel overwhelmed by them. And then there are the actual spiritual interactions that take place, which, many people who've worked with substances that include DMT talk about. They commonly talk about three elements. One is geometries. One is fractals and different kinds of geometry. The second is it being colorful, very, very vibrant, different kinds of color. And the third is shapes within it that they call entities, representative forms of something they're interacting with. So in those interactions, you have to know how to be able to moderate those and watch over those. And that's the role of a master facilitator or maestro médico vegetalista, to understand how to not only be aware of it, but actually moderate those kinds of interactions. And so all of that's at play at the same time with ayahuasca. And when you hear about things that have gone wrong, you'll see that it's in one of those categories. The person wasn't screened right. The person was borderline, and they didn't get doctor's note. The person didn't come off their meds appropriately and wean appropriately into the experience. They ate the wrong foods beforehand, or they were ill prepared for the ceremony itself. They didn't have proper facilitation. They didn't know how to deal with the intensity of the experience. They went into full dissociation and couldn't manage it. They went into deep fears and paranoias, or they interacted with some kind of energetic form within it that now they have a story about that was, somehow negative in context. When you learn to facilitate properly, you can work with ayahuasca, and that you have a way to maintain safety through all of those concerns.
Yeah, I because of the last thing you said, I have to ask the energetic forms that can show up in an ayahuasca ceremony, which can be really big. It can show up. I've heard, and anyone can go and listen to some of your previous podcasts that talk about some of these energetic forms, and some people talk about dragons and different things that show up. But I'm wondering, like, as a trained, prepared guide, when that's happening for someone, is there an ability to sort of know that that's happening in someone's journey when they're going through that? Or is it just kind of the physical body that you're inspecting and watching, saying, I think they may be going through this? Or can you actually perceive and know in some way that that is what the individual is actually going through?
Yeah, as you go through visionary training in ayahuasca, you learn how to be able to share vision and know what people are engaging or interacting with. Sometimes it can be very abstract, and sometimes it can be very concrete. And so, the practitioners will have different methods for managing that. Some use a variety of energetic forms that work with them as protections. It might be jaguars and eagles and sort of different kinds of trees and stuff like that from the natural environment and world. Some are more cosmic in their nature, and they use, angelic forms and light beings and things like that they've developed allyship or relationship with. And then, in the way that we work, we create a kind of omnipresent form of protection. And then if somebody also needs help, there's an open ability to ask for that at any time. So if they're seeing something and they're not capable of dealing with it on their own, I always say if they see any of those forms and they don't like what they're seeing, to just blow at it gently like that. And if that's not enough to have it go away, then they should just ask for help. They should just,
That's good to
if you
know.
blow at it and it doesn't go away, then maestro, I got something here. And, that's why we're there together, to be able to address it. And you're not a maestro until you've learned how to be able to address whatever can come up in ceremony. That's part of your initiation and rites of passage and maturation, to learn how to do that.
Yeah, these are the things that I think about and the things that I've seen, and there are only some of them. It's only the tip of the iceberg of some of the things, like a destabilizing experience or contraindications, and maybe someone, they snuck in a, something they shouldn't have ate before, or took a medicine before, even ingested a drug before coming into an ayahuasca ceremony, and how important it is to have, to have that guidance and that training, because you just don't know. People are humans, and they'll do things that, that will baffle you. And even before a big ayahuasca experience, and I've heard of this happening. So yeah, so let's talk about this plant medicine sitter and facilitator training, because, in this space, as a psychedelic concierge, I want to be able to guide people into places, and especially if they're coming from the worlds I come from, mental health. Of course, it's entrepreneurship too, but there's sometimes complex cases, and sometimes there's not. But I'd like to hear more about. We didn't dive super deep last time about the plant medicine sitter and facilitator training, and let me know about that. Tell us about it, and then
Yeah.
I'll tell the audience a little bit about myself about it.
Yeah. Thanks so much. I wanted to empower people to have real knowledge and experience sitting for themselves, others, and or going to, these ceremonies and these circles that are becoming really quite popular in the world. And so, not everybody has the opportunity to come down to the Amazon and learn in person. And so I've been looking for a way to share this online that could be go at your own pace. We know everybody lives really busy lives. So we broke up our curriculum into two main levels. Level one, which teaches you about sitting with the medicines, and level two, teaching you about facilitating with them. The purpose is for you to have a safe home practice, and also to be able to be a knowledgeable person in these other circles and groups, and also discern who's telling you the truth and who's just making things up. And so, we created the level one, which is 8 weeks of core curriculum. There are videos and lectures. The stuff that's the best to present in bullet points and just basic information without a lot of discussion is put in the videos. And then the information that needs to be teased out and more detailed and more conversational are in lectures. And so you can go through those, and you go at your own pace, and you learn to sit for yourself. So there's part of this which is the theoretical, and then there's part that's practical. And if you have any concerns about sitting for yourself at first, we have our students who have graduated that are always growing in the nature of their practice, and they'll be more than happy to sit with you. They can either come visit you, or you can visit them, or you can do it online. And so this way you get the personal practice that you need to be able to really learn from these medicines and learn with them. And so, specifically for your community and, for the listeners, we wanted to do something really special and nice for you guys. So we created a bunch of bonuses and a huge discount. So for signing up for the course, you get a $2,000 discount. You get to be part of our bi-monthly group mentorship and integration calls. You get lifetime access to the program. There's a flexible payment plan, and you get to be part of a ceremonial archive where you get access to ceremonies that I've done, so you can learn my own ceremonial arts and how I hold ceremony, and then you can use those for your own training. And we also give you a microdosing protocol, and we have two guarantees. We have a 2-week money back guarantee. If you see the course and you realize it's not for you, you can just cancel it and get a full refund. And or you can go through the entire course, and if you complete the course and you still feel like you don't have a safer practice, we have a safety guarantee and we'll refund your money as well. We stand behind what we're doing and the results that we've gotten. Almost everybody who's gone through the course says it is a game changer for them in terms of how much they know, how centered they feel about working with these medicines, and that it has really turned on their capacity to get more out of them. And so I'm really proud to be able to share this new kind of plant medicine education with people from all over the world. And it's a continuation of our mission to provide the most ethical and high integrity care that we can.
Yeah, and I think for myself, I've been through a couple trainings. One was pretty robust, and even the training just to do it for yourself, to just know thyself, know thy medicine, know the medicine, know what you're getting into in this world before you engage. Or maybe you've already engaged one or two times, but you want to go deeper into learning about these medicines, especially ayahuasca, and be able to then, if you want to become a facilitator, that's an option too. And that's how I approach the training. Is I want to know about it for myself, for my nervous system, for my trauma history, for the way I show up and the way that people ask me questions about this. And then also for facilitating, what is the proper way? What's emergency plans? What do I need to know? And I think that's super essential. So anyone's listening, if they've listened to this point, which they probably have, because the last episode we had you on, it was one of the most listened podcasts with the most, hours listened to the show. So if you have listened, I'm going to put a link in the show notes, and, you can click that, or you can just, reach out to me or reach out to Hamilton and his team, and, just mention Entrepreneurs in Recovery or Jesse, and you'll realize really quickly how thorough and robust this is. And this world can be, as I'm learning over the last 5 years, can be the wild, wild west. So you really want to really take the time, the care, the education to really, really, really do your diligence, because this is only getting bigger, this space. And as I see that happening, I just want to partner with, like we said, good actors in the space. And it's just been a great honor to get to know you and spend this time again and continue to grow. And I'm going to be coming out to Blue Morpho, no doubt, in 2026 and spending time out there. And so bringing some friends along. So, yeah, I'm curious about, when it comes to what you're most excited about bringing to life right now. I know you talked about the training. Is there anything else that you're really excited about?
Plant medicine for me has always been exciting, which is why I still have so much passion about it. It transformed my life, and it's a gift to get to share it with others. I'm really passionate about our mission at Blue Morpho. As a retreat center, we've been hosting retreats. The only break during COVID, which was mandated by the government. So we've been operating for 23 years without any breaks other than COVID. And we have retreats that are happening every other month. And so we love to have people come down and come on those. They can check them out at bluemorpho.org. And just really excited about, the opportunity to continue to get to share into this space. So plant medicine is a deep love. And if you share in that love or are interested in looking for help, it's an honor to get to support and help you.
Well, might as well just let the listeners know where they can find you. We're going to put all this all in the show notes, but where can they find you? Where can they learn more?
Yeah, come to bluemorpho.org and check out our website, check the show notes, and check out the course. Even if you're not interested, right now or ready to start, you can just sign up for our newsletter, and we'll give you a Icaro album that I created. We talked a little bit about Icaros, and if you're sitting and having your own ceremonies and you want to hear our Icaros, you can. It's an incredible art form, and it helped guide and direct the ceremony. So we have Icaros for medicine ceremonies, Icaros for ayahuasca in there, and it's a little taste of what we do. So we'd love to get that for you. So you can, just check out the link in the show notes and, continue to support Jesse, and we're here for you in your plant medicine path.
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone's listening, reach out to Hamilton directly or reach out to me. I'm happy to have a conversation about this as well, about the work, about the plant medicine facilitator training. Just reach out to me. But once again, Hamilton, I'm excited that you came on again. It's great to connect again. And I'm really excited to share this out. So thank you, my friend. Appreciate you.
Thank you too, Jesse. It's great. And I look forward to sitting in ceremony this year together.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Entrepreneurs of Recovery podcast. I am so grateful you spent the time with us today. If you could take a minute to like and subscribe to the show on YouTube and leave a review on Spotify, iTunes, I would appreciate that. We have so many amazing guests, so many more amazing solo episodes to come. Thank you for tuning in.